Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening. You reached Black Authors Matter TV, and it is, I always have to look up, it's April 18th. I should know that. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everyone.
And Rhonda is going to be handling everything for the first hour or so of the show. And I am I have an appointment I need to go to, and I will be back. And then Rhonda's capable hands, I know she does this all the time anyway. So our first guest was in the waiting room. I don't know where he went.
He's still there.
So maybe, oh, is he there? I can't see it.
Yeah, he's still, yeah, you just can't see
Oh, okay, because I'm not the host. Okay, so Rhonda, you got it. I will be back.
All right, Gwen, have fun.
Okay.
All right, y'all, now that Gwen is gone, let's have a party. So, hello, everybody. It's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson. I am going to admit our first guest, Mr. Ben Clement. Okay, he's connecting the audio. And I just need you to turn on your camera so we can see your lovely face. There he is. Hello. Good evening. How are you?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Gwen had to step away for a little bit, so it's just going to be me and you right now. So I hope that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So you have a book. It's called Big Bad Wolf, and it was just released on March 27th.
Correct. Actually, the official publication date was March 24th, but I didn't find that out until after I checked with the publisher.
Well, you know what? At least it came out. At least it was only a couple of days. It could have been like a whole month.
Been there, done that.
So tell us about the book.
Well, Big Bad Wolf in a nutshell is about bullying, and it's probably one of the most prevalent topics in education today, not just in inner city schools, but nationwide. Bullying, it's a topical subject, not only for school children, but also for adults, unfortunately, if you look at this divided country and government and what have you. But in essence, Big Bad Wolf tells the story of our protagonist, our central character, Oliver. He's a young kid who is relentlessly bullied by a much larger child, DeMonte. Mm-hmm. And DeMonte has to learn his lesson, of course. So Oliver's teacher comes up with a stroke of genius to figure out how to eliminate the bullying in her classroom. And that's what the book is about.
Wow, that's a really great subject because, we experienced bullying growing up as well, but it seems like in this day and age, kids are taking it to a much higher level than or lower level, whichever way you want to look at it, than what we may have gone through in our younger years. So they're continuing with more these days, do you think?
Absolutely. And I hate to, do the old folks talk about I walked to school 20 miles uphill backwards in a snowstorm. But I think the advent of technology has definitely exacerbated the bullying situation. Kids can cyberbully these days. And it gets to a point to where, all these children have cell phones with them. So the bullying follows you wherever you go. And it's in a virtual world now. So there is no hiding place. At least while we were walking uphill 22 miles in a snowstorm, we could get away from the bullying eventually. But these days, due to technology, that's impossible for our children.
Do you address cyberbullying in the book as well?
Not so much. This is direct, deals with it in the classroom. It also indicates that he's bullied on the way to school, on the way home from school. So it's relentless bullying, but it's the more personalized one, because I think that is frightening. It is, because it can become physical. And that's when it really becomes dangerous. Of course, mental bullying can be equally damaging to a child emotionally, but that physicality of bullying can really be dangerous, particularly when you have school shootings and things of that nature going on these days.
I remember years ago, the girl who was so tired of being bullied that she took a gun with her to school, and the kids on the bus were bullying her so bad she pulled out the gun just to make them leave her alone, and she was arrested, even though she didn't pull the trigger, but the fact that she was holding the gun at the kids because she was just trying to get the kids away from her. I mean, it was a sad situation all the way around. Yes, somebody could have been hurt, but at the same time, she's being bullied so badly that she felt like that was her only recourse.
And that is touched upon in Big Bad Wolf as well. The central character, Oliver, he doesn't tell anybody that he's being bullied. He doesn't tell his mother. He doesn't tell his teacher. He doesn't tell Officer Friendly or the principal. So he carries this on himself. He internalizes the stress of the bullying. And I can definitely empathize with the young lady on the bus, because you come to a crisis situation, and you come to serious means to try and eradicate it. And Oliver, although he internalizes everything, thank goodness the teacher, finally intervenes.
Right.
And in the book, it lets him off the hook, so to speak. And actually, it changes his whole attitude toward the bullying.
I'm glad that you mentioned that there was a teacher who intervened, because so often we see where the adults don't intervene. They look at it as kids are just being kids, or I'm going to stay out of it, or you're not being bullied that badly, or smile or hit him and he'll leave you alone, saying things like that. And often they don't intervene until the situation gets so out of hand to where they have no choice but to intervene, when they could have intervened when it was still light, and maybe squashed it then.
Absolutely. In the book, it touches upon that, and it gets even worse because the anti-bullying approach, the strategies are institutionalized, because in the book, it states categorically that bullying is not allowed in this school. Mm-hmm. Bullying is not allowed in that teacher's classroom. And the adults think they have it handled. But that's once again because the children aren't speaking out about it, because once again, Oliver's traumatized. He's threatened, he's intimidated mm-hmm. by his antagonizer, his bullier. So he doesn't tell anybody. So it really goes into and stresses that the school has all these dictums and rules and regulations and strategies to make sure that there is no bullying, but it also states categorically in the book that DeMonte didn't get the memo.
Yes. Now, Lydia Brew, she's one of our regular viewers. She asked if abuse and bullying are the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. When you get into describing what form it takes, I think is when you're able to differentiate what type of bullying it is. But abuse of any level is bullying. That's what it is. It's another individual imposing their will on another individual without that individual's permission. And that's the definition. That's what it all boils down to.
And it's also important to point out that abuse is not just physical abuse. Abuse can also be spiritual abuse. It can be mental abuse. It can be sexual abuse. So there are so many different forms, and there are unfortunately some kids who are experiencing all of them.
I'm going to take it to another level. And institutional abuse, when you talk about white supremacy, we are abused as a people. We are bullied as a people. And when you talk about institutionalizing that bullying, it gets to the point to where, CRT is now the new boogeyman, critical race theory. So we can't even talk about our history anymore. It's been eradicated, or it's being eradicated. And the book I wrote before Big Bad Wolf, Timmy Took a Knee, is a perfect example. That book will probably not be allowed in a classroom in Florida because it talks about Black Lives Matter. It talks about white supremacy. It talks about the civil rights movement. And it gives a lot of the history all the way to Emmett Till and the Tulsa Race Massacre and all sorts of things. That information is being eliminated from our classrooms because they're blaming the victim. Okay, we are the problem. Okay, so now wokeism is the new boogeyman. So all of us who were so fortunate to be woke and finally awakened to all the institutionalized racism that's been attacking us, now all of a sudden that's a bad thing. The last thing you want to be is woke. So that particular book, Timmy Took a Knee, would definitely be banned in Florida. I have no doubt about that.
Probably going to be banned in Virginia as well.
Unfortunately.
Yes. And book banning, we studied it in school when we were growing up, where certain books were banned. Many of Judy Blume's books were banned. Animal Farm was banned. I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings was banned. And we're seeing it coming back where books are being banned again. And what people don't realize is that when you ban a book, it makes more people want to read it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I want them to ban all my books.
Interesting marketing strategy, Rhonda. But I just hate the fact that they're trying to silence our voices.
Yes.
In any form that takes, it's appalling to me. It is. And it's just another form of institutionalized racism, in my humble opinion.
I absolutely agree. Now, Janice Kearney says that sadly, adults are so often clueless about what children are actually going through.
And that's true, because how soon we forget that we were once children and we experience the very things that our children are experiencing today. And it's easy to gloss it over and think that, we're better parents or this generation is better than the one that came after, and that our children are more protected. And nothing could be further from the truth. Once again, I touched upon the technology aspect with the social media bullying. A lot of people, and I don't want to date you, Rhonda, but, my generation, is far removed from the social media. We're just, touching upon it. It took me 3 hours to get on a Zoom call. But I'm just saying that our children are growing up in that environment. They have to deal with that. So I'm not excusing the parents being oblivious to the bullying that our children are dealing with. I'm just trying to explain why it is the way it is.
Well, I would also say, because as close as I thought that my daughter and I were growing up, because I tried to keep an environment where she could talk to me about anything, but I didn't find out until she was older that there were things that she held back from me. And I think even when you have that open relationship with your child, there are certain things your kid does not want to talk to you about. And I think that that's the importance of having mentors and, other adults that they can trust, or even an older teenager, somebody that they can actually trust. Because as much as I told my daughter she can talk to me, as much as we hung out and I thought that everything was fine, there were things that she told me that she would have never told me as a teenager. And she waited until she was an adult to tell me. And I had to question myself, like, wow, am I as good a parent as I thought I was? Why didn't I see this? And sometimes parents just don't see things. I had to learn that.
And it isn't a perfect art, parenting, as you know. Parents make mistakes. Parents are works in progress. Parents are learning on the job. So you're going to make mistakes. And the toughest thing to do is not blame yourself, not beat yourself up. Just try and do better. That's the best you can. Just try and do better. Once you know better, you should do better. And that's the best you can do as a parent.
I'm not going to be able to take my lessons learned on my new child because I'm almost 50 years old. There will be no new child.
You're still a baby. I don't want to break protocol, but it's okay if I read a small portion of this book. I just want to give people a flavor.
That is not breaking protocol at all.
I'm so sorry, but I'd like to do this. And this is in honor of my mother. My mother was a librarian. She's been passed now for 4 years, but she was also one of the greatest storytellers ever. I mean, all the children that came through Locke School in Gary, Indiana, knew of the story lady because my mother would dress in character and she'd tell these wonderful stories. And of course, me and my siblings had the blessing of growing up with a storyteller in the household. So we grew up with books and with storytelling, and hence there's a writer in the family now, okay? But anyway, this is a segment of Big Bad Wolf. This is how it begins.
Okay.
There once was a boy who had a dream. No, his name wasn't Martin or Luther or King or Junior. He wasn't that brave. In fact, he wasn't very courageous at all. This little boy was scared. He was afraid of monsters who lived in his closet, even though his mom swore up and down they didn't exist. He was afraid of the bulldog who lived next door, even though his neighbor promised his dog didn't bite, stayed on a leash, and would never, ever, ever jump the fence and chase him around the block. He was afraid of thunder, even though it rarely stormed, and when it did, it almost never turned into a tornado or twister or cyclone or hurricane. He was afraid of strangers because they were dangers. He was afraid of okra. Okay, the little boy wasn't really afraid of okra, even though it smelled funny and looked like green saliva. Mostly, this little boy was afraid of school. He wasn't afraid of school books because he really liked reading. He wasn't afraid of homework because he didn't mind studying. He wasn't afraid of teachers because most of them were very nice. He wasn't even afraid of cafeteria food because it really wasn't so bad, and they never, ever, ever served okra. This little boy was afraid of school because he was afraid of bullies, and that's where the bullies roamed.
You have a really great talent for telling a story from a child's point of view. And, no offense, but I know you've not been a child for a long time. So how are you able to do that?
Oh, hold on there. We were doing so well, Ron. Hold your horses there. I know I look old for 22.
I know you were only a child 5 days ago, but how did you remember?
I really appreciate the compliment. And that's one of the things I try and do with my books. I deal with tough subject matter, but I try and do it in a child's voice. I try and speak to children. I don't want to talk down to them. And that's why my books are intended to be readers, meaning that they're meant to be read with an adult. So the adult reads with the child. So when the child has questions, and I'm sure they will, the adult is right there to answer them.
Well, and that's a great thing, but I'm just wondering, because I've always said that I don't think that I'm an author as well as an editor, and I've been considering writing children's books, but I'm thinking I'm going to leave that for my daughter to do, and because I feel like I've gotten to a point where I don't know if I can speak in that child's language so that the kids can understand it. And then I also wasn't sure if I wanted to put not so much my point of view, but my way of thinking, so to speak, on the kids. I didn't know how to make that into children's language. So that's why I was wondering, how are you able to do that? Because there are so many authors out there who are wanting to write children's books. But for me, I feel like it takes a certain talent because you have to be able to tell this story in such a way that a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, or whomever is going to understand it and receive it.
But I like to think, and not trying to bang my own drum here or pat myself on the back, but because I'm a child at heart. And I still, can think like a child does, look through the world with wonderment, the way a child does, with that everlasting hope that everything is going to be all right. And that's the way I try and spin these stories, or they deal with heavy subject matter like racism and police violence and in this case, bullying. I try and get into that child's psyche to say that, okay, these things are scary and they're horrible and they actually happen, but there is hope because there are ways, there are strategies, there are ways to avoid these situations, there are ways to address these situations, and hopefully in terms of racism and other larger issues, there are ways to eradicate them as well.
That's wonderful. I love that. Now, do you also, I know sometimes we have beta readers or focus groups. Do you ever kind of test out your work with the kids? Do you have young kids in your own family whom you may test the books out with?
I do not. Basically, as an artist, and I'm a screenwriter mainly. I've done 8 films, so I do mostly screenwriting, and I write to an adult audience mostly. But my approach to my craft is I try and please myself first. And I know that's selfish, but
Yeah.
I think if I can please me and I'm my toughest critic, then I'm well on my way to pleasing the audience as well.
Well, I see here you're also a or you're retired healthcare executive and an educational management consultant, school superintendent. So you worked around kids, so you kind of heard a lot of that. You kind of been there, done that.
Absolutely, particularly working in schools. One of the toughest jobs, and they're all tough jobs, but being a school superintendent, having a child and their parent in your office in tears because the child's been abused or one of the parents has been murdered. I mean, I've dealt with some pretty serious things, and trying to emote with them and talk them through those situations. Although, none of us are really properly equipped to do that. We're all learning on the job. I don't care how much education you have behind you, but it's very difficult. So same thing when you're writing children's books, you take that same approach. You're trying to really get into that child's psyche and take them on a journey with you. Once again, not talking down to them, but exploring with them.
Wonderful. So now, this is Big Bad Wolf is your fifth book. You,
That's correct.
so, what types of, how do you choose your subject matter? You've had 4 other books prior to it. Did they all address bullying, or do they all address something different, that children might actually be going through?
Well, first of all, they're not all children's books. My first book was actually a biography, Giants on My Shoulders, back in 2012. 300-pager. And it basically was a biography about a club boxer who sparred professionally with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and Joe Frazier and Ken Norton and all the greats. And he's laying claim to have given Muhammad Ali the secret to beating George Foreman at the Rumble in the Jungle. So that's what it's all about. But the other 4 have all been children's books, and they're all different subject matter. The first one dealt with economic and social differences in the age of Obama. It was called Stone Throwaway. The one after that was called You Missed the Spot, and it's about COVID-19. And basically, I have a writing partner who's an award-winning filmmaker, Kelly McClung, out of Atlanta. And he had a brainstorm. He just calls me up one Saturday afternoon. He says, I got a great idea. Let's do a children's book together, because he was concerned about children being freaked out over COVID-19 because they see adults freaking out. So they don't understand what's going on. And his idea was, let's tell it through animals. Okay. And that's what he pitched. I said, okay, let me think about that. And 3 days later, I had written it. So that was You Missed the Spot. And it was the animals really giving humans the secret to what's going on with COVID-19. Okay. And then, of course, after that came Timmy Took a Knee about Black Lives Matter. And then finally, Big Bad Wolf about bullying.
So what are you going to do with Timmy Took a Knee?
It's out. Basically, I'm waiting on a call from Ron DeSantis to tell me to cease and desist. But until that happens, I'm continuing to do book signings. I have my first book signing for Big Bad Wolf in the next week. Say again. There's a brand new establishment here in Gary, Indiana, called Brown Skin Coffee, and basically it's Black owned. And the owner invited me a couple of months ago to do a book signing. She said, when I do my grand opening, I want you to do a book signing. And I said, say less. I'm there. So I'll be there with all my books. And I really like to engage with the parents and the children at my book signings, because the kids, the books are wonderfully illustrated. I have one of the best illustrators on the planet.
I was just going to ask you about illustrations and how do you choose your illustrator. I always love asking children's authors that, because that's some part of the biggest part of the magic of children's books is how beautiful they are.
Absolutely. And in this case, uh, it's works of art because my illustrator, Kalpa Josie, lives in India. She lives in Mumbai. And this is kind of embarrassing. This will be real quick because I know we're almost out of time.
We have
But I didn't discover she was female until the second book we were working on together. And I've been, I mean, I just assumed that's me, the male, part. I am guilty. I just assumed it was a male. And then she said, I think it's time that I let you know that I'm a female. But she's an award-winning illustrator, and she was referred directly through my publisher, and that's the only one I've worked with, and I love it. She's the best.
So she's done all of your children's books.
All except the first one. The first one Daryl Crockett did, and that was stone's throw away. But the three after that, the publisher referred me to Kalpa, and Kalpa is just wonderful. And see, I come up with these weird ideas, particularly the illustrations for Big Bad Wolf. You got kids in costume, because on the cover, you have Oliver on the cover, in a wolf costume, but on the back, his tormentor, Demonte, and then I wanted the different skin tones, and I explained to her how critical it was that all the children in the classroom, although they're all African-American, there's a multitude of hues, and I wanted to capture that, and I wanted that realism, and she did it wonderfully.
That is awesome. Well, congratulations on everything that you're doing. If you can remind us once again about your book signing next week, and then remind us where or how people can reach out to you if they want to connect.
Well, basically, you can always catch me haunting Facebook, but on my publisher's website, sbpra.com/Ben Clement. That's through the publisher. And once again, you can catch me on Facebook. You can buy my books on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, Waterstones, Target, all the usual suspects. But I love to hear from people. If I see you, out at a book signing or something like that, I love to engage. So step right up, buy 1,000 books, and I'll answer any questions you want.
I'll bet you will, won't you? Well, I did put your website, sbpra.com/Ben Clement. I did put that in the chat, so people will be able to find you there. I really hope everybody supports these books, because you're dealing with, I love the way you're able to deal with these serious subjects, but put them in such a way for children to understand, and for children to be able to take in. Do you ever go into schools and read your books to the kids?
Absolutely. I just did a Black Men Read event with my fraternity. I'm in the greatest fraternity in the world, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. But we did a Real Men Read event at an elementary school, and several of my chapter brothers and I went in there and we read books. And I just happened to mention to the principal that, hey, I'm an author. If you'd like me to come back and read some of my books and do an autograph signing, something that Black children need to see, that we write books too. And here's a real live author. And if you have an interest in writing, you can do it, because I always like to encourage young writers. Young authors approach me all the time and ask me, how did they get started? And at the risk of being sued by Nike, I tell them, just do it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, once again, thank you. And, and thanks for waiting until the end of the interview to tell me that you're a member of Omega Psi Phi. I will forgive that.
Uh-oh. There's a story there, folks. There's a story. Oh, Rue.
I know they say you Omegas love us Zetas, but it's all good.
Hey, we love them all.
Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Thank you for sharing your story and for all that you're doing for our kids.
Rhonda, thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I'm going to pick up your books too.
Please do. I mean, don't read them to the kids though.
Uh-oh.
Erotica, but they might just be a little too heavy for the kids. But I would love it if you read some of my books. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. I'll support.
Thank you so much. Well, you have a wonderful evening and keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so that was Mr. Ben Clement. Oh, I'm about to hit the wrong thing. I'm about to end the whole show. We can't do that. Okay, so yeah, we just need we're gonna go ahead and remove you from the chat, and we are going to invite our next guest, Miss Jaquelin Thomas. And she is coming in now. We're just waiting for her audio to connect. You guys get out there and really support these books, because I always say that an author is never going to become a bestseller until somebody buys their first book. And so we can't wait until they've sold 3, 4, 5 books to say, okay, now I'm going to support them. So right now we have on the line Miss Jaquelin Thomas. So if I can get you to unmute, please.
How are you?
Fine, how are you? It's so good to see you.
You too. You too.
And thanks for being on the show tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, for those who have been under a rock and they don't know who Jaquelin Thomas is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Not everybody knows who I am. My name is Jaquelin Thomas, and I've been published for about 26 years now. But if you've never heard of me, that's okay too. I'm a mother, grandmother, even a great grandmother. Can you believe that? Yes. It's good to see the future generation. I write romance, I write women's fiction, I write young adult fiction, and also romantic suspense. So I do a little bit of everything.
I see. And so I think your latest book is Cold Case Deceit.
Yes.
Wow, tell us about it. I hear a lot, just saying the title. I'm hearing a lot in this title. So this story is probably jam-packed.
Yes, it is. But basically it is 2 cold cases and 1 body. Yes. So we find that the victim is not who she said she is. And so, you have to undig, you have to really dig up those secrets to find out who she really is.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Is it one of those books where I think I know who it is, and then all of a sudden I don't really know who it is?
Yes.
I love it.
Yes, there's some twists and turns. Because again, this is a woman who had a secret, and unfortunately, that secret cost her life. Basically twice.
Yeah.
Because again, her body was found years before it was actually found. So then you find out, okay, so who was that other body? So there are a lot of secrets to be uncovered. So Cold Case Deceit, it's about deceit.
And see, it also centers on unforgiveness.
Yes, it does. Because it is part of Love Inspired. And what I realized, one of the biggest issues that we have is dealing with unforgiveness.
Yes.
I've struggled with it because, sometimes it's like, I'm always the one to forgive. I'm always the one to, make peace. And sometimes you get tired, turn the other cheek. And I used to say, I've turned every cheek I have, what do I do now? But what I've learned, just experience, not what somebody's told me, is that I sleep a lot better if I forgive and really move on, because as long as you hold that unforgiveness in you, you are giving them your power.
Right.
The other person.
Now I've had my boyfriend always says that when you don't forgive somebody, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
It really is. It really is, because you expect them to suffer because you don't forgive them. And they move on. They don't care. A lot of times they don't care if you've forgiven them or not.
They don't even know that you're mad.
Right. A lot of times. So, and that was kind of the case with Cold Case Deceit. We had the head of the cold case unit. She moves from up north. She moves to Charlotte. And I think it's Charlotte. I think she moves to Charlotte, but she comes home, and a member of her team is her ex-fiance.
Mm.
And he called off the wedding 2 months,
Oh,
yeah.
don't tell me this is the first time she's seen him.
Yes, and I think 12 years, 11, 12 years. It's the first time she's seen him, and has since remarried, but it was more so, she did it because she just, I guess, wanted somebody to marry her. So there was hurt there because she didn't love him. She was still in love with Kyle,
Right.
and her name's Philippa. And so it was about her coming home and having to face him and then having to work with him with all this unforgiveness. And then this cold case, he brings the cold case to her because it's actually his sister-in-law.
Wow.
And so he wants to reopen the case.
There's a lot going on in this story.
Yes, there's a lot going on in this book. But I hope people will find it interesting and enjoyable. The reviews so far seem to be pretty good. So I'm excited about it. I really love suspense. It's actually really my first love, So really being able to write about it and put kind of an inspirational spin on it is really just a perfect mix for me. And of course, there's the romance.
And that's what I was going to ask, is because you write in a number of different genres. How do you choose which genre you're going to focus on with what book?
Well, with me, I write for Harlequin. I'm contracted with Harlequin. I also independently publish. I independently publish my women's fiction. And with Harlequin, I write for their heartwarming imprint, which is more about family, community, love, love, love. With their love inspired, I write the cold cases. And then with their intrigue, I'm actually, my intrigues haven't come out yet. They don't come out till 2024, but it actually deals with a drug cartel. So I actually write about an interagency unit, special unit that is going after the head of a drug cartel, and her name is Poppy Mancusa.
Now, where are you finding all of these ideas, ma'am?
Life, life. Life, there's so much going on, with the popularity of all these different movies that target, the whole thing about drugs. I'm kind of like, why can't we get rid of drugs? And just reading the documentaries and, all the research is like, wow, some of the biggest, you're never going to get, because a lot of the biggest drug dealers are at the top.
Right.
And in power. So it's been interesting. And just, I think, for me, it gives me a sense of wanting to right some of the wrongs in the world. And so, in books, we can make it where the bad book guys go to jail.
Right.
And so I think is how I just make sense of the world. Because for me, I like to know why people do the things they do. And, I've seen a few shows, about drug dealers and things, and I'm sitting here like, I told my husband, why would you be loyal to a drug dealer? Because they're not loyal to you. You make one little mistake and they're going to take you out. So why be loyal? And just that whole psychology. But what I realize is that a lot of drug dealers have an interesting business model. And I'm like, wow, there's actually, I think, a book about drug dealing as a business and that business model, because look how much money they make. Right. And the different ways that they do it, because, of course, I'm reading all these articles for research, and there was one that dealt with cereal, Frosted Flakes. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I told my husband, I want to use that, but somebody's going to ask me, so how do you get the cocaine off the Frosted Flakes? And I don't know, because I am not a drug dealer. So someone who shall remain nameless, that I spoke with, informed me that actually you boil it and the cocaine rises to the top. Oh. And I'm like, who sits here and thinks about this stuff?
I said, how does somebody know that?
I didn't ask any questions. I was so appreciative of the information. I left it alone. And hopefully nobody will ask me. But my search engine, if Big Brother is watching,
Right,
They
right.
come knocking at my door because of my search, the things that I search about and everything. But it's been interesting. And what it is, I like learning. I like learning about everything. And so my stories give me that opportunity to really learn about stuff, even illegal stuff.
There you go. Well, the good part about writing is learning so many different things. And
Mhm.
often, well, when you started writing 26 years ago, we didn't have Google where you can just look something up. You had to actually physically go out and ask people questions. I
Yes.
remember when I wrote a police station scene in one of my books, I had to talk to a friend who was a police officer
Yes.
so he can let me know if it would really happen this way.
Exactly.
And
And
so
I think we should get back to that sometimes.
I was just going to ask that question, is that even though we have Google now, do you still prefer to actually physically talk with people?
I do, I do. And then I'll tell you why, like for the intrigue series, working with this drug cartel and this interagency, I had to find out what agencies work together, And so what was interesting, I decided to put a police dog in one of the books. And so I had him, of course, because he was a narcotics dog with DEA. And I have a brother-in-law who's DA. And he was like, we don't have any dogs. He said, that's Homeland Security.
Yeah.
So, but we would think DEA,
Because you
you
would
know,
think that they would be sniffing out the drugs.
right. And they do, but they're just not DEA agents don't have dogs,
Right.
So Homeland Security. So I had to switch it. But thankfully, because I, know him and had this relationship with him, I was able to, run that by him, not knowing. I'm thinking, well, I put a dog in a DEA dog. He's like, we don't have any dogs. He said, people think we do. But, and somebody who may know that or may not know that, but somebody who knew that would tag me on that,
Right, right.
So I was glad to
That
ask.
you're not going to be able to find, because how would you even know to Google whether or not DEA had dogs? So, I mean, that's
Right.
probably something that you would have to ask a real person.
Exactly, because even like I had to research the type of dogs, the kind of training that they go through, because I wanted my dog, Max, to actually sniff out drugs and bombs. And a lot of times they really do one or the other.
Mm.
So see, I was gonna have a super dog, but but I researched that, and that's how I found out the training that they go through. And I also found out how, that the owners, a lot of times when the dogs retire, the owners have the option to buy them because
Yeah,
they've been with them for life, for much of their life. So they take them home and they kind of retire together. And I thought that was really nice.
yeah.
You learn a lot of things, but it still did not tell me DEA didn't have the dogs.
Yeah, well, being in the US Army and working for Customs and Border Protection, I've seen the dogs, and you're right, many of the handlers will establish such a relationship with that dog that
Mhm.
they're able to keep the dog
Yes,
once their that retirement happens.
yes.
And, that's their best friend.
I know, I think is amazing. And that's why I really wanted to write this story about a woman like me. I don't really do dogs, but so I did a woman who didn't care for dogs. She was actually afraid of them. It wasn't that she didn't like them, but she had been bitten as a child. And so she had this fear. And Max is very friendly. And for whatever reason, Max, as well as his owner, they take a liking to her. But she just doesn't want this dog around her. And every time she would see Max, he's grinning at her. And dogs grin. I had to actually research that. Do dogs grin? And this dog would grin at her and be so excited when he saw her, but he actually ends up saving her life.
Yeah,
And so, it goes from this love-hate relationship with Max the dog, and he ends up being like her best friend.
you did some research for this. I love it. So now Cold Case Deceit
Mhm.
was just released on the March 28th, and you have a book signing
Yes.
coming up.
Yes, I'll be in Chicago actually this Saturday.
Yes. At what, Thurgood Marshall?
Yeah, Thurgood Marshall. And I think it's 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. And I think that's central. Is that central? Yeah, because I'm Eastern.
What,
Uh,
it's in
no,
Chicago? Yeah, I
yeah,
believe it's Central.
central.
Yeah. At the Thurgood Marshall Library, April 22nd, in Chicago. What time did you say?
I think it's 3 o'clock,
Okay.
maybe 2, but I think it's 3. I think
They,
it's 3
they are
o'clock.
on Central Time.
Yes,
Okay. So 26 years in the game.
yes.
There are some people who have left the writing industry or the literary industry after just a few years, not because they didn't like it anymore, but maybe they ran out of ideas, maybe they ran out of time. What made you stay in the industry so long?
I love writing. Writing has saved my life basically a few times. I did leave for a bit around 2016, I think for 2 or 3 years. And that was because I at that time was suffering really bad with panic disorder. And I needed to really, I became a prisoner in my own home. I couldn't leave my home for like a year. And so I had to stop everything and really get me back. And so, but ironically, writing helped with that, because I would write my feelings down and I would have to write myself out of fear. With panic disorder, you deal with irrational fears. And I had to, with the help of a therapist, really break that down and take care of me. So I couldn't take any contracts at that time. It was more so just writing just for me to get through that. And so it helped me, but writing has always been I would say my voice, even when I was little, because I actually was very, very shy. I still struggle with it, but I didn't really talk when I was a child. And so I would write everything down. And if I had an argument with someone, I would rewrite it, so that I won. And I would say things that I wish I had said at that time. And it changed when my grandmother started reading my stuff. And I got in trouble a few times. So then I started just kind of making things up, but it kind of grew from there. So I've always known that I wanted to be a writer. I worked in corporate America for a number of years, but writing, I came back to writing when I was pregnant with my third child and on bed rest. And at that time, Terry McMillan had come out with her book, and then Beverly Jenkins. And during that time, that's when I realized, okay, now is the time.
Yes.
Now is that
Yeah.
time.
Waiting to Exhale just really started a firestorm of more Black women wanting to read books about Black women.
Yes, yes. Well, because this was a book about us. And when she wrote that, it was kind of like even the publishing industry was like, oh, Black people read. Oh, we need more of this, so it kind of, it woke up everybody, I guess. But that was the opportunity. And so I decided, I had been in corporate America for a number of years. I was, 35, and I'm like, okay, now or never. Don't put it off any longer. I wasn't happy in corporate America. So I started writing. And by the time I gave birth to my son, I had my first manuscript written.
Wow. So now I know the publishing process was different 26 years ago. So you had a manuscript written, but what was it like taking that manuscript from an idea to a published book?
It was, I think mostly because I didn't know what I was doing. I wrote the book, but like I said, I'm a researcher. So I started to research writing groups because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what to do. So, and at that time we lived in Los Angeles. So I joined Romance Writers of America, went to their conference, which was in Dallas that year. And the first person I met was Beverly Jenkins. And I met Donna Hill. And Donna asked me if I was a writer, and I'm like,
the first people you met were two heavyweights.
yes, yes. And I read both of their books. So of course I'm starstruck. And then Donna's like, are you a writer? And I'm like, I want to be. And she was so sweet. And so Monica Harris at that time was the editor at Arabesque at Kensington. She was over the Arabesque imprint. And so she was walking by, Donna introduced us, and I'm starstruck again because here's an editor. And then Donna said, so are you going to meet with her? And I'm like, no. No, no. And she's like, why not? She said, you said you have a finished book. I'm like, yes, but she said, well, you had just pitch. I'm like, I don't know what a pitch is. And so she stepped away and then she came back. And she gave me this business card. It was Monica's business card. And she goes, you have an appointment with her tomorrow at 11. And I'm thinking, and do what? So at that time, Frances Ray joined us, the late Frances Ray, who became my mentor. She and Donna stayed with me that night to help me pitch. And we went over it and over it and over it. The next day, I flubbed it, but she still asked for the manuscript. And then 19 weeks later, she bought it.
I think the most amazing thing about that story is that you met, first of all, you met such heavyweights in the game, but not just that they were willing to encourage you and push you even when you didn't feel you were ready to be
And
pushed.
they didn't know me. They didn't know me at all. And it was, and the one thing that they always ask, because I always give them credit, like I say, Frances is moved on, she's gone, but I don't forget. And one of the things they said, pay it forward. And I've always tried to do that, is pay it forward.
All right. Now, you probably shouldn't have said that on the show. Now you're going to have people sending you manuscripts.
No, don't send me manuscripts, but I'll be happy to talk with them, or whatever. I help a lot of authors, just kind of to get through that, because I've never had writer's block, and again, this has been, I say, a gift from God, because I've not, I didn't have a big struggle in getting published. I was able to get my agent a week before I got the offer. So everything to me, it was God ordained.
Absolutely. Janice Kearney said, this is such a beautiful story, and it absolutely is. You had a very beautiful journey getting to where you are.
Thank you. I did. And I don't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly. And that's why I guess I do try to encourage others, because everybody's journey is not like that.
Absolutely.
And even though waiting those 19 weeks, now while waiting on those 19 weeks, I did, and see, back then we didn't email. We had to actually, print these suckers out, take them to the post office and mail, and hope they don't come back, to you. But I got 5 rejections. So I do know what it feels like to be rejected. And even after being published, I've, written other books that did not do anything and didn't go anywhere. I know what it's like to be rejected. I don't like it.
Oh no,
So I can imagine.
I don't care how many you get. You don't get used to that feeling.
No, it hurts every time. It does. It hurts every time, but you have to pick yourself up. And one of the things my grandmother's always said to me, is that you can never win if you stop trying.
That's right. That's a word.
And some things you do, you have to reconcile. Maybe this isn't for me. But when because I honestly believe when God gives you a gift and a desire, that is for you. You may have to go through some things, but you don't give up on it. You don't give up on it. And I knew that even as a child, and see, it was my 3rd grade teacher actually who saw this gift in me, and she actually encouraged me, and she actually took me to my very first book signing. And this was when Tina McElroy Anza came out. It was her debut novel, and I went and I met her, and she was very encouraging.
So you just bat 1,000 with meeting very influential people, don't you?
Is God, I guess, because, but she left such a great impression on me, and, to even tell a teenager, years later, because she's a heavyweight, years later, I got to introduce her at an event, and I talked about that. And she's like, oh, I knew you looked familiar, and so, but I wanted to remind her, because I believe in giving people their flowers while they can still smell them.
Amen.
So I didn't get here by myself, and I'm not going to tell anybody I did.
I'm glad to hear that. I think people needed to hear what you had to say tonight. Just having to be encouraged. going through the rejections, looking for an agent, and then continuing to write.
Yes.
And how writing has saved your life. I mean, there's a difference between writing for the business and writing to be therapeutic. And you've seen it on both sides of the spectrum.
Yes. Yes. Now, I have to be honest and say I quit almost every other week too.
Yes.
I have those moments where is it really worth it? This, and for me, Cold Case to See is book 95. I don't know if you knew that, but that's book 95 for me.
I was just about to ask you how many books that you've written in 26 years, and you are in book 95?
That's book 95.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you do nothing but write.
Yes. I mean, seriously, yes.
Wow.
Yes. I when I'm not writing, I'm reading books on the craft of writing. I really want to be the best that I can be, and I want to leave a positive footprint, but I cannot not write stories. I have 48 proposals of books I haven't written yet.
Mm.
So
Wow.
so I come up with ideas. I don't know that I will ever be able to write as many books as the ideas I have. I could
So
sell ideas,
do you have a goal year of when you write your centennial book?
Actually, I have 3 books coming out next year.
Wow.
And so that puts me at 98. So if I independently publish something next year, and I'm thinking about it, but I also have some books that my agent's shopping. So very well, the 100th book could come out next year, and we're doing a big party. We're doing it up.
Oh man. You have to do that up. I mean, that
Oh,
needs to
you and Gwen will be invited. Don't worry. You know.
Well,
So
Raquel Masco says 95 books is phenomenal. And Tony Benita said you are marching to 100.
I'm trying. I just want to, that's my goal. I always say I would do 100 and retire, but now it's like, no, I'm just going to write until I can't write anymore.
I love it. I love
But
it.
I do want to get to that 100.
That is
Mhm.
an amazing feat and it's very inspirational. And I think it's something that so many up and coming authors need to hear. I mean, the ups and downs that you've had along the way, but you continue to write and you've written so much. I mean, I thought I was doing something by writing 1 book a year. I'm gonna have to catch
You
up.
are. No, you are. It's just because I was writing multi-genre.
Yeah.
At one point before 2016, I was writing for Simon and Schuster, young adult. I was writing, well, that was actually like in the 2008, 2006, 2008, around that time. But I pretty much always wrote with 2 or 3 different publishers. So that's why I have so many books, because I'm delivering books for each of them. And with romance, I normally do every 6 months with romance. And so now with Harlequin, I write for, like I say, intrigue, for heartwarming, and for love inspired. So each of those, I'm going to have at least 3 of those books come out each year.
Well, that is amazing. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be you when I grow up. I'm real. I mean, because I mean, just listening to you, I'm motivated to go ahead and get back on my writing journey. I already had an author call me and tell me, you have 1 month to get your next book out, and
Yes.
I let that month pass, but it's coming, it's coming, it's coming.
No, it's needed. It's needed. Our voices are needed out there. Fiction, nonfiction, science fiction, whatever you write, there is a market for you out here. Our voices are needed. Our stories are needed out here.
Mary Evans wants to know if you are a pen to paper writer or computer only.
I am computer only, but I do edit by hand, but computer only. And I'm very organized. I actually write by outline. So I will do a 30 to 50 page outline before I ever start the book.
Wow, okay, a 30 to 50 page outline. So does that include your character profile?
Yes, my character profiles, settings, motivations, all of that. I'm a researcher, so I do all of that because I need to know what's going on. So basically, I do all of that, have that set up. Now, it often changes
Mhm.
because as you get to know your characters, sometimes you know their motivation changes.
Yes.
You know, even in Cold Case Deceit, that's what happened with the deceased. You know, I started her off one way, but as I got to know her from the other characters, I'm like, okay, she wouldn't have done this. So I had to change that. And she was deceased. She, you know, nobody even got to meet her, but just because of what people said about her, the characters in the
Still
books.
has to make sense.
Right, right. So it will change sometimes, but I have to have a starting point. So I spend a lot of time developing my synopsis, my outline, because I do at that term, you know, break that up into chapters and it becomes my book.
I wish I could talk to you a lot longer because I love this level of conversation where we start to talk about the art of writing and what it takes to write a book. So I wish we could talk longer. I would love to, if you'd ever want to come back to the show and just talk about this, just say the word.
Oh,
I'm
sure. Whenever, you know, you and Gwen, anything.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for
Everybody,
having me.
this is the great Jaquelin Thomas, who has just released her 95th book, Cold Case Deceit, and she will have a book signing April 22nd in Chicago at the Thurgood Marshall Library. So if you're in the area, make sure you go out and see her.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a wonderful evening. Thanks again.
You too.
All right, so that was Jaquelin Thomas. And as I bring in our next guest, who I hope this is Miss, I hope this is our next guest, because I didn't recognize the name on the Zoom. Oh, that's her. Hey, Miss Debra. Wait, you're muted. Okay, so while Miss Debra is unmuting, I just want to thank everybody who has been voting in the Black Authors Matter TV Awards contest. We have 10 days left for you to cast your votes. So continue supporting these authors because they are doing some amazing things. And I've seen authors who have won this prize before, and they take it so seriously. They're getting their friends to vote. They are taking their badges and they're putting them on their Facebook pages and their websites. They really value your votes and your support. So please continue to go out there and support these authors. Now, Miss Debra, can you hear me?
I am here.
Yay! I've been looking forward to interviewing you.
Well, I have been looking forward to it as well. Thank you for having me. And I want to thank Dr. Julia Royston of Royston Publishing Company for this opportunity and just working with me. It has been truly my honor and privilege to work with them there at Royston Publishing and Royal Media.
Julia Royston is awesome. I love her. I love her. I love her. All right.
Yes, she has such a wonderful spirit and you know, just a great attitude. And that's my kind of person, that positivity and let's make it happen. You can do it. I love it.
What have you been up to, Miss Debra?
I'm sorry.
So what have you been up to? The last time I saw you was at the National Black Book Festival last year.
That's right.
And you were selling your books there. And then you and I have also worked together on a new Renaissance, a celebration of African-American fiction, which is still an amazing, amazing anthology. You all haven't had a chance to read it. You really should. Some great stories in it. And I loved your story. And I'm wanting to know if you can just tell the folks about your story.
Well, that was a story. It was called Three Women on the Road. Yes. And it was a short story that I had written for a class I was taking. And it was supposed to be a flash fiction story. But then I said, well, somebody said, you need to do a little bit more with that story because of the characters. So when this opportunity came up to work with you, I said, well, you know what? I'm going to take that story and let me see what I can do with it. But it's about three lady friends who are going to a concert. and some of the adventures that they have on their way with three women driving down the highway, and some of the things that can happen to you on the road. And I think, and one of the characters, she had, you know, what always happens to us as women when we get on the road, the strangest things. So I won't tell you, because I think, you know, that's part of the fun of the story, is that when they see what happens to one of the characters in the story, and how it kind of propels them to be able to move forward and finally get to this concert at last.
Well, I would tell you that what I liked about your story, well, it was the little things, just the little things. Like for instance, one of the characters having to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
You know, how that was a big part of the story. I
Yes.
like how the entire story really only took place in the span of about 2 or 3 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. And actually, I'm going to tell you, it was because of your encouragement that I was able to sort of move that story along, because I find myself that sometimes I'm not as detail oriented when I'm writing. And you kind of said, well, I think you need to add a little more here, or, you know, put a little more, you know, into this, and develop those characters a little bit more. And so that was very, very helpful to me. And I thank you for that, and just the opportunity. And I hope people get that, anthology, because there are some excellent stories in there. I enjoyed reading every one of the stories that were in there.
Oh yes, me too, me too.
Mm-hmm.
You have a new book, Baby Sue?
Yes, Baby Sue Learns to Count. I'm in this children's mode, it seems, now. And my first book was called Pennies Make Dollars. And that was all about my character, KK, who is learning about the opportunities and the importance of saving money.
Yes.
And yeah, and so it is just a book that starts out with, you know, the character just wanting to play video games like most little kids, and especially little boys do. But he finds out that, you know, saving money can actually be fun. And just the idea of learning about saving, and learning it doesn't take a whole lot to begin to save. Yes. And saving for those things you want, because most of us love to pay for the things we want, and then we beg for the things we need. But I think we need to flip that script and begin to, you know, pay for what we need, but save for what we want. And so that's what we're teaching KK in this lesson. So Baby Sue is his little sister. And she, of course, because she wants to follow her big brother, she's a little girl that is just beginning to learn about numbers and alphabets. And so she's just learning the importance of numbers. And those numbers, of course, are going to take her to the point where not only will she begin to count, but once she learns how to count, she'll learn how to count money, because children love money. Yes. Especially when it's somebody else's money. But don't we all love somebody else?
You are so right. You know what's funny is that when we talk about saving money, we don't think that saving a quarter here or there is going to do anything. But you remember when we were younger and we used to play the arcades and the pinball machines, and it would only be a quarter to play. And then we'd play it, they would give us 3 lives. The 3 lives, we lose the 3 lives, and then we take another quarter and stick another quarter in. Before you realize that you spent like $5 or $10 on
exactly.
That. And that same $5 or $10 could have gone into a bank. You know, even if it's a piggy bank sitting on your dresser, you could have, that's a good way to have saved that money.
That's exactly right. And, you know, and a lot of times we don't realize that, you know, saving, you know, will help us in the future, because saving not only helps us for the future, but it also helps us in the present, you know, because it teaches us things that sometimes we don't even realize when we don't know how to ration out or proportion, things that we get, when you just gobble everything down rather than, taking your time and utilize it and putting it in proportion to what you need. And I think that saving, especially as children, help us to begin to learn how to proportion our lives and the things that we want, and not be in such a hurry to just take anything, but to be able to practice that skill in every aspect of our lives is important. So, that's why I thought, since I'm starting with him learning how to save money, then I don't know, it just came to me about his little sister. Well, she's a little girl, about 2 or 3. So she needs to know about counting and how important it is, because numbers are part of our lives, just like reading. And if you don't know how to count, then definitely you're not going to know how to add. You're not going to know how to subtract. You won't learn about multiplication or division or anything else. You got to start with the foundation, which is counting.
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah.
what age range would you say that Baby Sue is for?
For the little guys, the little ones, little girls, about I would say about 2 years old, when they're inquisitive and they can sit and read. Some little 1-year-olds, but I would say about 2 up to probably about 5 or 6 years old, especially when they can read for themselves. And I tried to make it so that it was a book that the little ones who are like first grade, kindergarten, first grade would enjoy reading and learning some words and about numbers and seeing numbers in their environment in all different types of places. When they go to the store, or, when they look at a telephone, those are numbers. Most of us, when we have little children and grandchildren, we put numbers and alphabets. I know I did when my boys were little. I placed, my husband and I, we put alphabets on the refrigerator and numbers on the refrigerator, so that when they went to go in there, say, all right, what is this number? And they could begin to count and say their alphabets. And so, numbers are very, very important. You got to know your address, and your address consists of numbers. So it's just important. So I think from that age, about 2 up to about probably 6 years old, would really get a kick out of reading Baby Sue, learning something about Baby Sue. And if you love children's books, like I do, I just like to read. Therefore, I even read children's books. So some people may just get a kick out of reading it to their grandchildren or reading it for themselves. And they got beautiful pictures. I had a wonderful illustrator. Yeah, I'm going to show you this book. I hope I got it right here.
It's upside down. So just
child, me in a book, right?
Yeah, but then now turn it around.
Girl, I can't do nothing right when it comes. Wait a minute, let me see how I got it. I think I got it right this time.
No, now you need to. Now it's upside down.
Oh my Lord, help me! Oh, there you go.
Can I just scoot it over a little bit more into the camera so we can see it the other way?
This way.
There we go.
I'm used to having my partner used to be, but I've got to learn how to do all of this stuff. So this is like crazy, okay? But anyway, I got it.
Lift it up a little bit.
Lift it up.
There we go.
Huh?
No, right there. Baby Sue learns to count.
Yes. And the illustrator was Cameron T. Wilson. And he does some beautiful, beautiful illustrations. I mean, really making the children look very real, and with the story, and just he did a marvelous job with that. So yeah. And sometimes you can have ideas, but you don't know how to, and that's why I guess God gives other people skills as well. He didn't give us all the same skills, and we didn't get all of them. Some of us might have 10 talents, but some of us only have 1 or 2. So we have to go to some other folks who might have 5 or 10. And he's one with that great skill with drawing and making those beautiful illustrations.
Right. Well, how did you find him?
Through Dr. Julia Royston.
See?
Yes.
She just has everything all together.
She does. She's just a magnificent person. And I have really enjoyed working with her. And like I said, I thank her for this opportunity to be here and be one of the Royston Publishing Company authors that's working, you know, under her company. And I like it because, you know, I can do, you know, they help me do the things that I need help doing. And that's the wonderful thing about it. And sometimes when you do self-publishing, you really don't know what it is that you need to do, but it's nice to have somebody who knows what needs to be done and can help point you in the right direction and help you do things that you don't know how to do. So she's really excellent at that, and I really appreciate her.
Well, we do love Miss Julia.
Yeah.
What she's doing. Dynamic Vision Singers. I think
Mm-hmm.
familiar with them. Adults will also love reading Debra's books. We all can learn the lessons in the book.
Yeah, that's the group that I sing with. It's a family group, and it consists of my sisters, my brother-in-law, and my youngest son sings with us in Dynamic Vision. So thank you, Dynamic Vision, for supporting the sister and being there. That's one thing I can count on. You know, we all need that family, right? Amen. And thank God for family. And I certainly am glad I have a great family. My sons and my grandchildren, my sisters, my brother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, and all of them, you know, they're just very supportive of whatever it is that I do. And I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, Lydia wanted to know if you could open a book. She wanted to see some of the pages.
Oh, okay. Hey, let me see if I can turn it the right way, Rhonda.
You did.
Yes, let me open up some of these pages. I'm just gonna flip through it so they can just kind of see some of the pages. Can you see them?
Yeah.
They can kind of see the artwork.
I can see the words better than the pictures. So just go no, the other way.
This way.
Yeah, there you go.
All
now,
right.
Up a little bit. There we go. Right there.
Yeah, so they can see some of that artwork in there. And that little girl is so adorable. Oh my God, she is so cute.
I love the Afro puffs.
Yes, and I tell you, it just reminds me of my granddaughter so much, and with those cute little Afro puffs and all of that. So yeah, he did a marvelous job. I hope you guys can see that. That what I'm doing. So hey, look, it is a challenge sometimes doing some of these things, but you know what it's like without a challenge.
I love the way you face those challenges. Well, I want to take a minute to welcome Miss Gwen Richardson back to the show.
Hello.
Hi, my time worked out. I had a rehearsal. I left early. I told them I had to leave at 8. I got home in 12 minutes. So I'm back.
You didn't break the speed limit, did you, lady?
No, well, I always drive fast. So, you know, the speed limit for me is a guideline.
All right. I love it.
I'm a fast driver. So anyway, but I'm safe. I'm a safe, fast driver.
Right.
So how are you, Miss Debra?
I am doing marvelous.
Now, I had a question. Did you
ma'am.
get the hookup with the Roystons at the festival, or did you know her before?
I actually met her before the book festival, but I met her through the Black Authors Matter TV show.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it was through you guys that I saw her. And
it brings people together.
Yeah, it does. It's some
absolutely.
great connection.
What does this shirt say? I know y'all might not be able to see it, but it does say Black Authors.
Black Authors Matter. Yeah.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes,
and that's true. That's true.
And
And Black Authors Matter because we're not as visible as we need to be, and so we need to increase the visibility.
Right.
And make a statement. And then people who wear the t-shirts and caps and have the mugs, they tell me that it helps them sell books.
Absolutely, absolutely. It does. It
Because people ask, "Are you an author?" And then
Mhm.
people will support you. If when they know you or they met you, they'll support you.
That's right, exactly. And like I said, you guys are doing such a wonderful job. I did not know a lot about it until, it was during the pandemic. And I think when you all were doing the book festival for the first time online on Zoom, and I said, well, I'm gonna check it out. And
Okay.
and so I decided to tune in, and I've been watching ever since. And I don't know, was it the 2020 that you guys did the first one? During the beginning of for the pandemic, you guys started doing it online.
We started the show July, I think the date was 28th of 2020.
Oh, 2020.
That was
Right.
that was the launch of the show. And our 500th guest, I figured out, it's either going to be on May 9th
Mm-hmm.
or May 23rd when we'll have our 500th guest. It just
Wow.
depends on if there's a repeat, and I don't know that yet. So,
Right.
but
Okay.
yeah,
That's awesome.
500 guests. Mhm.
And you guys are giving exposure and opportunities for authors like myself, for people to get to know, who we are and know about the books that we're writing. And it is amazing when I watch the show, and I usually try to watch every week. Sometimes I miss, but I usually try to catch the show every week. And it's just amazing to listen to the authors and the things that they write about. I mean, we're in all types of areas that many times I think we don't even realize that we have Black people writing in those areas. So you guys give exposure and opportunity, and then even to know the bookstores that are still out there. The stores that are actually in the community, as well as the ones that are virtual or online, and the book clubs, and also publishers and illustrators. And it's wonderful. It is really wonderful.
Well, thank you. It's good to hear the feedback, and it is a labor of love, but it's good to hear feedback and know that the show matters along with Black authors.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, I told Rhonda, we get comments on, Rhonda probably never sees the comments, because as soon as I get a notification that says something crazy, it's immediately banned. So they might make a comment, and then in 60 seconds, it's gone. But, there are people out there that just,
could be people who are empowered because they're sitting behind a computer, and they just say what they can say because they know nobody's going to find them.
Right.
Yeah, and the stuff that they say, I mean, some of it just shows how ignorant they really are.
People can be, sure. People can be.
And not exposed to, you can tell they don't know any Black people personally.
Right.
Some of them, or maybe they do, and they just trying to get their frustrations out anonymously with someone that's not directed toward them.
Right.
And then, every now and then you'll have someone who's Black post something snarky.
Right.
Sure. I don't ban them unless they really
go crazy. Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I do delete their comments, because I'm not telling anybody, if you have a business page or fan page, you need to police your page.
You're right.
Because people will come on your page. One thing people will do, they're looking for pages they can post their stuff. If you have actual people, they will just post stuff in the comments of the stuff that you have. And they'll post their book. Then some of them will go in and post in every post you have. Like they'll do a comment on every, and when I see it once, I delete it. If they do it twice, they're banned. I'm not, no, you have to build your own audience or participate in one of our programs. Then you can get your stuff promoted. But don't just, don't be a squatter.
Yeah, a bootlegger.
I saw about people squatting. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
That is
but it's so
Deborah, you
true.
say
It's so
so
true.
you're branching out into the children's book area.
I am. I am. I have another book that is going to be coming out probably about the end of this month or beginning of next month. And it is the next book in line to my Pennies Make Dollars. This one is called Dollars with Sense.
I was
And
Okay.
if that was going to be a series.
yes, it's kind of turning out that way. I don't know if I initially started out like that. I think when I said it, I was going to do I thought I was going to do 4 books. 3 books. I think I started with 3, but now I think I have a 4th. So Dollars with Sense. And then the one after that is going to be called Money Don't Grow on Trees.
Okay.
So
That's
it
a
is,
good one.
yeah, it's just, kind of moving up to the level for our teens, to begin to help them to think that, money has to be earned. Somebody has to earn it. And so you do things to do that, and you don't, it's good not to just waste what you get. And many times, we as parents, and I'm guilty of it, my husband and I were guilty of it. And, you just hand your children money, you buy everything for them. So they don't appreciate the value of that dollar. They just think that my sons used to say, when they would want something, I said, well, I don't have the money, but just write a check.
Yeah. Or use a credit card. Use a credit card.
Have money to pay for that. My mother used to tell us when we were children, and that's where I got the title from. She used to say, I know you all think that we go out in the backyard and just pull some money off of the trees out there,
Oh, okay.
but money don't grow on those trees, so
No.
yeah. We are, our children are unrealistic because we have them unrealistic because they don't really know what the struggle is or what it is, what it takes in order to make those dollars, and how they come about to be able to, get the money that they get to spend, or how we are able to give them the money we spend. We work for it, or whatever the case may be. And so I think, it's just to help them to start understanding, the value of that dollar, the value of a penny. A penny is valuable. I know a lot of people think, well, I just throw away pennies, but you just start throwing those pennies into a little bucket or a jar and see how they add up.
There was a news story this last week about the 18-wheeler or something where the dimes, like it was like $200,000 worth of dimes ended up on the highway, some kind of crash or something. And they said it was 2 million dimes. And I think somebody was trying to steal it or something. And I'm like, what would you do with it? That wasn't a well thought out plan.
No, no. And nowadays,
if you take all that to the bank, you have to have an account before they will. Because if you take a roll of coins to the bank, I know at my bank, they put the account number on the roll in case it's short.
That's right.
So how would
they
you
even let you deposit cash? It used to be a time you could take cash, to the bank, like you say, rolls of coins and things like that. But now, when you take money to the bank, it's cash money. You got to show ID.
Right. I didn't make a deposit. I'm like, I have to do that. And I've been banking at the same place for 12 years. Of course, it was a new employee that didn't know me. That,
Right.
I don't like that because I've been banking at the same bank for 12 years. And my manager recently retired, which I hate because I can't call her if I have.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you, Debra, did you use your poetry with your, because I know you wrote poetry in your other books.
Yes.
Did you use poetry with the children's book?
I did in this book and in the first book, it was more like rhyming. I did the rhyming thing. And
Okay.
I know a lot of people think, that, well, Dr. Seuss was kind of the last person who did rhyming really well. I don't know. It just came to me that way. And therefore, that's what I did. And maybe that's because of the little poetry writing thing that I do. And I love writing poetry. I like writing stories, but that's the way the book sort of came out. Now, the second book is not a rhyming book. but the first two are. And
Okay.
children do love rhymes. You know, they love the little N words that rhyme, and you know, the thoughts that kind of connect. So that's how it came out. So yeah, it does have, I guess, a little bit of that little poetry writing thing in it.
Well, Ms.
Well,
Jackson, we really appreciate having you on the show. It was fun. It was really good to reconnect with you again, and great seeing you again.
Same.
Oh, apparently that dime incident,
mhm,
Philadelphia. Bernita said it happened in Philadelphia.
in Philadelphia, okay. I saw it on the news.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. And I might have to see if I can get my book in the Jerry Pinkney competition or
There you
something.
go. There you go. But before
Okay.
you go, remind us where we can find your books and how we can connect.
Yes, you can of course find them on Amazon or anywhere that books are sold. You can go to my website. That's DebraTheWriter.com, DEBRA, thewriter.com. And you can order your copies of any of my books. And Baby Sue is my latest book. And I think I'm holding it up right this time. I'm kind of
Okay, baby still learns to count. Okay, that's great.
so they can get it there. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. You have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So I have a few announcements that I need to.
Ability back. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I saw it. It gives me a notification on my end. So I do have a couple of announcements. I have the 2 books to give away. So we're going to do that now. This first book is called Sufferer, the Memoir of a Brixton Reggae Head by Alex Wheatle. This is an art. It's an advanced reading copy. The book won't be out until June, but it's a memoir and it's hardcover. So there's one. And the other book is, well, let me get the trivia. The trivia for this one is, the author was abandoned as a baby to the foster care system in which European country?
I know the answer.
Okay, so whoever answers it first gets this one. The second book is a book that we're going to be reading for our book club kickback, our next one, which is June 13th, and we're having it with Connie Briscoe. The book is called You Never Know, and this is the advanced reading copy. The book is out, but this is an advanced reading copy the publisher sent, and hopefully people can see that. You never know. And the question for this book to win this one is, the main character, Alexis, suffers from a disability. What is the disability? So if you get that one, you get this book mailed to you. And before we bring on our final guest, I just want to announce the Black Authors Matter TV Awards. The voting has started. It started on the 10th. We've already received 1,600 ballots, over 1,600, and we still have another 10 days to go because the voting doesn't end until April 28th. So you can vote every day for your favorites or however often you want, but the voting window ends at 11:59 on April 28th. And for the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards, that process is ongoing. It was the Jerry Pinkney Children's Book, but we named it, rebranded it as the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards. So it's the same process and it is ongoing. So our final guest is Mr. Henry Razor. He has a book. He's a religious faith author and he's with She Publishing, and She Publishing is one of our frequent sponsors and guests that we've had on the show. They also had a full house at the National Black Book Festival, and they will be back again this year with a full house of authors. They're gonna have at least 8 authors, they said. So Pastor Razor, Henry Razor, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. And we want you to unmute so we can hear you.
I should be unmuted.
Okay, we can hear you now.
All
So
right.
welcome to the show.
Oh, glad to be here. I'm glad that you're having me.
Okay, and your book is called Biblically Black and Blessed. That's the tongue twister.
Okay.
So Winning Spiritual Wars. Now, are these 3 different books? Show us a copy of
Okay.
the book. So
Okay.
you have a
yes.
copy with you?
I don't have the copies with me here at the table, right?
Okay.
But maybe my wife will go downstairs and grab a copy for me before this is over with. But there are currently I have 4 books. I have Biblically Black and Blessed.
Okay.
And that was the initial book, Biblically Black and Blessed 2, which is the children of the Ethiopians, which it kind of expands on that topic.
Okay.
I have a book called The 4 Principles of Dominion Authority.
Okay.
And I have Winning Spiritual Wars, Unleashing the Power of the Soul. So those are the 4 books that are currently published and currently available right now.
Okay. So your Biblically Black and Blessed book, what was the focus of that?
Okay, the focus of that it's God's relationship with Black people as people of faith and part of the faith community, and for all of my life, really. What I experienced was Black people were pretty much written out of the Bible, and basically, you know, what we wasn't talked about. We're probably we are the most prominent people in the Bible, but right. we're the least talked about, the least lesson about. So what this book was, it came about is I do Black history during the month of February at our church, and I've been teaching biblical Black history for a long time, and people were coming just to hear that. And people were coming, and they were coming with notebooks and pads. And so finally, you know, my wife had been telling me, well, you need to put this in a book because everybody's asking me, can you have a book? Can you have a book? Can you have a book? So I created a book for it. And that book, I thought it would just be for the people that came to church. Apparently, I started getting requests from a lot of places. And so we published that book. And then the second book, The Children of the Ethiopians, it actually deals with the biblical timeline of when, in biblical timelines, Ethiopia was pretty much the entire continent of Africa, was known as Ethiopia. Now, it really was the lower, everything from the Sahara Desert lower was considered Ethiopia. And then some writers, some of the historians, and even some of the Bible scriptures talk about Egypt. But the Bible talks about one king that came up, and they say he was the king of Ethiopia, but the history shows us that he was the king in Egypt. And so some places they have the whole continent of Africa as Ethiopia, but most historians actually agree, most scholars, that the part of the continent below the Saharan desert was considered Ethiopia really up until colonization started. And so this is called The Children of the Ethiopians. So we actually, with that book, we see how we we were forced over here in slavery, and we were brought to this country, and how our ancestry then would tie back to what was considered biblical Ethiopia. And when we look at biblical Ethiopia in the Bible, God has nothing but good things to say about his relationship with the people of Ethiopia. At one time, he even told the Jewish people, he said, look at what I'm doing for you. I'm treating you like you were the children of the Ethiopians. And so I kind of highlight that.
Well, I would tell you that when Pastor Razor brought his book here to DC for the Black History Month Literary Weekend, he talked about his book at one of the high schools that he visited, and the kids didn't want him to leave. They were really, in fact, I heard you had a little bit of an entourage. Yeah,
after it was over with, the one of the school officials came and said, hey, these guys want to see you. And we spent some time in there, and I had to tell them I got to go because I got to get my ride. So those books, I find those books are valid in faith. One thing about me in faith if I'm only relevant within the church, then I feel I'm irrelevant, right? And so I have to be, we have to make faith in the faith community relevant to everyone. And I think everybody appreciates knowing their real history, their true history, especially in a time when in so many places that history is being barred and those books are being taken away. And I think everybody really appreciates that. And even when I was there were people that wanted me to stay over Sunday and talk, like come to their church. And we had already made arrangements because my wife, mother was sick. But what I did, I came home and I did something. I created a class called The Bible History of Black People. And that is something that's repeatable, something that I can teach. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be teaching it for Juneteenth because there's a bus company here that does Black History tours for Juneteenth, and they're asking to partner with me. They're going to do a tour and then bring the people to sit through the class, and so we'll do that.
Oh, that's
Well, you are, what you talked about is very relevant. It's very timely. Well, it's timeless. It's timely and it's timeless. I have a novel called The Genesis Files, and in there I reference it's a mystery, but it has a biblical tie-in. So one of the things that gets revealed in my book is about the scripture in Genesis where the Garden of Eden is described as being at least partly in Ethiopia. And if you look at the people of Ethiopia, they could not be mistaken for Caucasian.
Right.
No,
well,
no,
you know,
they come
exactly.
in different shades, but none of the shades are European.
Well, you know what I've found, and in the book Biblically Black and Blessed, I actually take the Bible and use the Bible and give the region that the Garden of Eden could be located in. Okay. And when we use that in Genesis, we find that the Garden of Eden could be located from anywhere from sub-Saharan Africa all the way up to really the lower Mesopotamia, which is just east of Africa, right? But then, but then there's a geneticist, Rebecca Can. And Rebecca Can in 1988, she finished her work of studying. She took the DNA samples from 237 women from everywhere on the globe. And she actually did I'm not a scientist, so I don't, she actually did the DNA and ran the DNA. And what she said is that the DNA of every one of those women pointed back to the origin in sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
And so what she said that what I found is that Eve was not the milky white skin, blonde hair that we see on television all the time. What we see is that Eve was a dark-skinned sub-Saharan Africa living in the sub-Saharan desert. Now her work appeared on the cover of Newsweek magazine, and then it disappeared.
Right. Yeah, they'll publish an article once. In fact, my novel, The Genesis Files, is based on, and I don't know if you've heard of this tribe, the Limba tribe. The Limba tribe is an actual tribe that can trace their roots, their DNA to Aaron in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And they have more DNA markers, more Jewish DNA markers than the European Jews that we see today. So there was an article on the front page of the New York Times in 1988 about the Limba tribe. Mm-hmm. And once that article came out, I was like, wow, now that this is revealed, then it'll be written about everywhere.
But they don't.
I didn't see anything. It was years. And I said, you know what? I'm going to write a novel and put the Limba tribe in there, because it's easier for people to learn something in a novel than if you write, sometimes if you write nonfiction, people won't read it. But my book has gotten so many reviews, and the people who write reviews say that led them to research the Limbu tribe. They didn't know about it. And that was what I wanted to happen.
Well,
So
you know,
people to know about these real people. They still exist. It's not it is an ancient tribe, but they still exist.
And I very well can see that, because as I was researching and doing my class, the Bible History of Black People, so that I would have something that would tie these two books together and I could present it to people. What I found is I actually created a timeline, a biblical timeline, and then I actually overlapped that timeline up or laid that timeline up against the world history timeline that we're taught in college and that we're taught in school. And what I found, and then I got mad at myself because I said, I've been reading this in the Bible all the time and it's been telling me this, right? What I found was that Abraham was really an African that traveled when Nimrod was building the tower. The Bible said these people traveled east. So when we talk about the seed of civilization and all the things that the Sumerians brought to the table, how they invented the clock and how they did engineering marvels and how they did, the Sumerians were people from Africa that the Bible said they went east. And so that's why they ended up in the Mesopotamia region. And it was from that Mesopotamia region that God sent Abraham back west to Canaan and told him to set up and establish there, right? So it's very well that there are Ethiopians with more Jewish DNA than the Zionists and European Jewish people that are occupying that territory now, because those people came from Africa.
Right.
That's just the bottom line.
You need to have, in order to get the word out about things, you have to have the ability to transmit information. You know, the media is where people get most of their information, be it right or wrong, or partial, or sometimes completely false. You know, if you don't create the mechanisms and the ability through books, through shows like this, and I hope you do something online like a Zoom class, people would sign up for it. I think people, you could charge for that. I mean, there are a lot of people who want that information.
Well, I think you said you set up a course a little earlier, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
I think did you do it on Zoom too, or did you only do it in person?
I haven't really done it yet. I developed it. See, okay. Prior to me becoming a full-time pastor, I was a fiber optics engineer, and then I was moved out of fiber optics into the engineering training department. So I managed a team of global trainers. So we had to design courses, develop courses, and put them out. So what I did after February, I came back and I had so many questions and they wanted to tie the book together. So I said, let me design and develop a class for this. And that's what I did. And so it will probably be online, but I'm looking to have some type of online classroom, somewhere where I can put the content up, because I've developed a few classes over the past few years and past couple of years, and people are asking me for them, and I can't teach all of them. Right. And so I'm taking some people through what I call an instructor qualification process, so that there'll be consistency there. So I'm probably going to get an online a space where I can upload the course, and then whoever is teaching it can teach the course from there in a virtual classroom, a virtual environment. When I was managing, I actually transitioned our our in-person training to hybrid and then into full virtual as needed. So I'm probably going to do one of those type of deals.
I love your vision. I mean,
Mhm.
because some people would have just made a course maybe on Teachable, but what you're doing goes so much further than that. And I think it's going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, that was my experience. So I created a course for instructor qualification, and then because I'm a certified technical trainer, certified instructor, and course developer, and all those things. So I created a course so that I could take them through this, and I can show them what the objectives are, what you need to do, how to do it, when to put it in the parking lot, when to take it out, when to do these things, and then I can actually monitor them, or actually come through and assess them to see whether they're ready to teach now. And they have a book, and we check off when you're ready on each one of these issues and all these things, because we've got to get the information out. In the last couple of years, I've developed probably 7 or 8 conferences and classes, and people are asking me for all of them, and it's just a fact. I can't do all of them, right? And I know that I can't do all of them. So I try to do it as reusable objects. But at the same time, I have to do it and put it in a place where more than I can be responsible for teaching it, and be consistent with the teaching too, right? And that's why I'm probably looking in that direction.
Okay. How did you go from being a software engineer to a pastor?
Okay, not a software engineer, really hardware engineer. I'm talking
hardware. Okay.
Hardware.
Okay. There's a difference. It's a big difference.
Yeah. I was actually developing the equipment and traveling all over the world, supporting these people. I had anywhere from 13 to 18 engineers reporting to me, and these guys were in 13 countries on 5 of the 7 continents, right? And so what we did, we developed the equipment that's used in the infrastructure networks that the Verizons and the AT&Ts and all these people use to provide the services. So that was what I did, right? But all during that time, I was a minister. And I even toward the end of that, I was pastoring, but I was working also. I wasn't pastoring full time. So this is all. This goes to the answer to your question goes to the book that I have coming out in May. It's in May. I'm releasing a book on purpose, and I can see everything that I did from the time that I was a little kid in the Mississippi Delta and Arkansas was preparing me for to teach and to do the things that I'm doing now, to develop courses and to teach, not to just get up there and preach and but to actually transfer knowledge. And so that people have things that they can apply and they understand things. And everything that has happened so far, I've gone through, I can see now that it was all a plan to get me where I'm at now. And where I'm at now, I'm using all of those skills. I'm using all of that experience, and I'm using all that education and all that training to do what I'm doing now.
Well, I certainly love your passion, because everything that you're saying, we can actually feel the passion in what you're saying. So I know this is something that you truly believe in. So because you truly believe in it, I know you're going to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it work. I tell you, and I made some great connections. I've talked to people in February. I made some great connections, and there have been people been contacting me, been talking, and we've been going back and forth. We've been talking about some collaboration, doing some things, and so I'm really excited because some things are happening and things are going well.
Yeah. Well, the body of Christ needs to stay relevant and modern, technically and just with innovation, because we have to be able to reach people through the mechanisms they're used to. We can't be absent from, we're in the world, we're not of the world, but we still need to be able to reach the world. And technology is where you're reaching people. And Satan is very busy on all these platforms. So we need to have learned people in the body of Christ to be able to transfer knowledge.
And that's what I mean. That's what it's all. We really have to transfer knowledge. And if we don't, and I tell our people at the church, it's good if you're emotional, if you shout, if you do it, that's great. But you need to have knowledge that you can apply, that can benefit you, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to benefit you, right? And this goes. I've got a book coming out that I'm really excited about in May. It's about purpose, and the title of the book. This is the first time I even mentioned the title out for the thing. The title of it is "Your Purpose is Your Superpower."
Yes.
Right. And so
that's good. I like that.
One of the things I think that probably goes over our head, or maybe the church has just kind of been so stubborn we haven't realized that, is that of the people on the earth, probably 99% of those people have divine purposes that are not directly connected to or tied to the church or the temple or religion. It doesn't mean that they don't go to church. The church is there for them to worship, to serve, and to worship God, to get clarity, to get direction. But then when that worship service is over with, they go back to doing what they were purposed for. Some of the people are purposed for engineers. Their purpose is teachers. Their purpose is authors. Their purpose is entertainers. Their purpose is singers. Their purpose is soldiers. Their purpose, all these other. It takes all of these things to harmoniously make the world a better place, right? And within that, the people who are purposed to work at the temple, to be religion, to purpose in church, their function fits in with the functions of everyone else. And so I can see throughout my life, I can see God purpose me. He took me through technology to the highest degree, and then he took me through training and knowledge sharing and knowledge transferring and all those things to the highest degree. And I see now how that is coming into play. As a pastor, I'm writing books on faith that people that really maybe would have given up and have just thrown the towel in, are saying, wait a minute, let me look at this. What you're saying really makes sense. I like this, right? I like this. This is what I've been saying. I think I'm going to give church, I'm gonna give God a try. I'm going to come back there. I'm actually doing that. And then at the same time, I had a gentleman call me last week. He said, Pastor, we need you. He said, we're getting grant money. We're going to open up 140 tech centers to actually take people and train them. And this is your area. We need your guidance. We need your expertise. We need you as part of this team, right? And so I committed to that, because one of the things I've done as a pastor is I took one of our buildings and made it a tech center. And so I was taking kids off of the streets and getting them out of the pathway of gangs and violence and bringing them to a place where they were Cisco certified. And they got Cisco. So some of these kids are making more money than they ever imagined they could make, right?
Legitimately.
And they're running. And that's a very valid point when you say legitimately, because one guy told me, he said, Pastor, he said, you're not the first one that has approached me and told me I need to do something. He said, I'm out there on the streets and people were telling me, and they said, look, you need to get off these streets. They're dangerous. I can take you down and get a job. And he said, okay. And he said, they would take me to McDonald's or Burger King. And he said, I said to myself, I am not going to leave what I'm doing here for $8 or $9 an hour. He said, but then you came along and said, hey, get off the streets. I'm going to put you through this program. And when you're finished with this program, I'm going to put you in an industry and help you get into an industry where you can start out at $40,000, $45,000 a year. It was a few years ago. And he said, now I listened to that. And now not only did he get into the industry, he went back to school, and now he has a master's in computer information systems, So So, I mean, you're right. We have to have knowledge in technology. We have to have knowledge around all of that. And I think that's a very, very valid and valuable asset to possess in the faith community. I teach pastors how to set up and do online streaming, because I was streaming online before Facebook and YouTube. I built my own video server at the church, and I built my server, put the camera to it, and we would stream on Sundays years before Facebook or any of those come on. And so we were having a funeral just Saturday, and all these people were coming to the funeral, was coming up to me and said, "Pastor, how do you set this up? Can you show me how you set this up?" And I'm like, I teach a class to local pastors. Just come, because you need to know how to do that.
Well,
Yes.
Pastor, you are a true visionary. And you've done a lot for history as well as for your fellow pastors. So we thank you for what you've done. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the night.
And the show. And the
That's
show.
okay.
So we need to sign off. And thank you so much, Pastor Razor, and I'm sure your people can get your books on She Publishing LLC or Amazon, probably.
Yeah, anywhere books are
Anywhere
sold,
books are
they
sold.
can get those books. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It was amazing hearing your story, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you, and
No.
good luck. Much
Thank
success.
you all for the platform, and thank you all. And Dr. Rhonda, I love you. Okay. Thank you
All
all.
right, good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
so-
Bye-bye.
So he knows all about, so we're at the end of our time. I do want to, I think somebody did win the books.
Actually, we had 2 winners.
We had 2 winners. Mary was the first one for the hearing impaired. Was that right?
Yes, and the other one was Lydia Brew.
Lydia for United Kingdom. Okay, so Lydia and Mary, your books are on the way. We are out of time. It's the end of the show. We'll see you next Tuesday. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off. Thank you for tuning in.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great night.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.